Up until this point, we've covered creating primitives and moving them around in space. Now we're going to take a look at how we can actually edit them. To start editing an object in Blender, we need to select it. And from right here, in the top right corner of the screen, we can see that we're in object mode. Up until now, we've been in object mode. That's the mode in which we can move things around, scale them, rotate them, and all of that good stuff that we've been doing up until now. But in order for us to start doing any actual modeling with these, we're going to need to go into edit mode. We're going to do that by clicking right here in object mode and select from the drop-down menu, edit mode. As you can see, things here changed as well, and we're going to take a look at all of these things. Right now, we're at the vertex level. If we take a look at these three buttons here, and in the vertex level, we basically have access to the vertices of this 3D model. And you can see we can sort of click them around. We can use the basic operations on them, which we'll do in due time. If we select the second one, we're going to be going to the edges of the box. Here are the edges. We can select them and work with them, which again, we're going to do shortly. And here we have the faces, which is basically the entire face of the object. So, what can we do from here? Let's go back to the vertex level. And as you can remember from the previous lectures, we have nice things like move, scale, and rotate. Well, in edit mode, we can apply all of these things to basically the vertices. Like, for example, I can move this vertex right over here, and you can see it changes the shape of the box. Scaling it doesn't do much because it's a single point in space, and neither does rotating it. But moving it changes the shape drastically. Where we start seeing scaling go into play is if we go to the second option, the edge, and again here you can move the entire edge, which you can see provides an even more drastic shift in what we're doing. Let's say I pull it back like this, and we get an entirely different figure, entirely different volume. I can, aside from this, do fun stuff with it, like for example, scale it. Why am I able to scale this? Because it has 2 points in space right now. It has 2 vertices. The edge is constructed by 2 vertices, and when I scale out, it pushes the vertices apart, which is something that you can basically see. What I can do is rotate, but it doesn't do much, like with the vertices. So let's undo a couple of times so we can have again the nice box. And we're going to go to the third level, which is the face level. And here I can rotate, scale, both uniformly and non-uniformly, and move. So, you've probably guessed why I'm able to apply all 3 operations here. We have 3 or more vertices composing the face, which basically means, in this particular case, it's 4 vertices, which basically means that I have a full plane to work with across all axes. So basically, what I can do right now is give this thing a different shape. Like, let's twiddle a bit with it. Let's go to the edge level, select this edge and push it down a bit and push it inward. And let's select, for example, this face, and let's rotate it a little bit inwards. And you see that right now we've given this box a different volume. We've changed the volume of the box. It starts to look slanted. One thing we can do is work on multiple faces at a time. So let's select one face, for example, this one, hold Shift and select this one. And right now I can move multiple faces at the same time, which again is applicable if you want to use multiple vertices. For example, if I select this vertex and this vertex, right now I can move both of them at the same time. Same thing with the edges. I click this one, I hold Shift and click this one, and I can move them and scale them at the same time. One thing we need to note is that we can do more complex selections in stuff that has more geometry. So I'll delete this butchered box because it doesn't resemble anything workable at the moment. And we're going to take a look at this cylinder. So let's go into edit mode. And what you can see here is that we have multiple faces going across the volume and multiple faces going, like two faces going on top and on the bottom of the volume. So one thing we can do here, which is very interesting, is if we go to edge, we can select all of these edges surrounding this face. We can select the entire edge loop. This thing right here is called an edge loop. We can select it by clicking one of the edges and while holding Shift, double clicking on it. Again, I click on the edge whose edge loop I want to select, the edge loop that this particular edge is a part of. I hold Shift and double click, and it selects the entire edge loop. Let's try it here. I click on this edge, and while holding Shift, I double click, nothing happens. That's because it's not a part of an edge loop. It's a part of an edge ring. And here is another interesting thing we can do. We can select all of these by holding Shift and dragging. And you can see that we've selected everything that's visible on the screen. And now we can move them, sort of do anything we want with them, rotate them, scale them out and in. Let's undo this a couple of times. Another thing we can do here for a more advanced selection is turn invisibility on for the object. That happens if I press Alt and Z from the keyboard. And the object becomes transparent, and that way I can select through all of these. And now I've selected everything, and I can basically scale, move, do anything with these edges that I want. Another thing we can do here is select multiple faces in an easy fashion. So if I want to select this entire face string, I click on this face, and while holding Shift, I double click, and boom, you see I've selected everything. We can pretty much do the Alt Z thing and select through everything as well. We can have the same thing for the vertices. Alt Z, click and drag, everything is selected. Now, one thing we can do here to make things even more interesting is shift through selections. So how do we do that? Let's say we want to select this face while we're in face mode, right over here. What happens if we go into edge mode? The selection keeps the same. We've selected all of the edges that comprise that face. And if we select the vertices, we select all of the vertices that comprise that face. So now, if we scale or rotate to the vertices, the application is applied as if we're using the actual face. We can exclude things from this selection by holding Control and dragging over the vertices that we want excluded. Let's Control drag and remove these from selection. And let's rotate this thing, and you can see what's happening here. We're basically rotating just this one thing. For example, something like this. So again, Selecting everything, we can drag, and deselecting, holding Control and dragging. We can also hold Control and just sort of go here bit by bit, or maybe do some more advanced selection. Let's, for example, select just these three over here in a fast manner. If I hold over here, over the select tool, my mouse, and I sort of hold the left click, I can choose different selection methods. The default selection method is a box, but you can have also a circle and a lasso. The circle is pretty much self-explanatory. You see how it works. It selects things in a circular pattern. If we use the lasso, however, it creates a lasso selection as if it's like Photoshop or some other image editing software. Like, look at this. We can do here, here, things like that. This will become more apparent with more complex selections, which we are going to be doing in the future. But for right now, that's about as much as we want to get out of these selections. So, if I want to return back to object mode, I simply can go over here, click, and go back to object mode, and now I can move this modified geometry just like in the previous videos and do basically all sorts of stuff with it. That's it from this video. See you in the next one.